Paleo, I've got to make this video even though I've been meaning to have take some time and sit down and construct these ideas into well-formulated thoughts. I haven't really had time to do that, but you've got to be answered on this free trade thing. You're absolutely getting out of hand and getting ridiculous. So here we go. Imagine, when man was in a very, very rudimentary state of existence, and let's theorize a colony consisting of 5 families, okay? Each family, for the purposes of simplicity, is made up of a husband and a wife, a daughter, and 2 sons. Now, the mother and the wife take care of the homemaking duties, and the father and the 2 sons take care of the outside duties, raising a garden, maintaining chickens and beef for their meat, mending their own fences, growing their own wheat for bread, carpentering their own house, smithing their own pots and pans, okay? And this is a very difficult life. Obviously, not everything can be done in one day, as there's only so much manpower and so much time in the day. So everybody sets about this difficult life, and let's imagine in this colony of 5 families that one Sunday after church, they're all invited to one particular family. We'll call it the farmer family, and as is tradition with these things, everybody's going to bring one thing, okay? And the women get together and decide who's going to bring what, and let's say they ask one particular family what they'd like to bring, and they do everything for themselves, but they just particularly like baking bread. Okay, and so they volunteer to bring the bread, so on and so forth, with another person that volunteers to bring beef, another person volunteers to bring milk, and another person, due to the multiple dishes that will be served, extra dishes are going to be needed, and so one person volunteers to bring some metal pots and pans that they've done. Now, mind you, they all do everything for themselves, but because they liked or just enjoyed doing these particular things, these were the things that they decided to bring to this luncheon. Okay, so it doesn't take long. All the people that have gathered at Mr. Farmer's house immediately notice the quality of the vegetables that are being used in the preparation of the dinner, which he has provided himself. And the baker says, I'm just not that good at raising these vegetables like you. Mine are not of the same quality. They're not of the freshness. I just don't know what I'm doing wrong, but for some reason I'm not good at doing these vegetables. But, I love to bake. And Mr. Farmer says, well, you know what? I love this bread that you brought. It's just good. I can't maintain the same quality of bread. I can't get it to rise just right. I can't get it to taste like your bread does. And you know what? I prefer your bread and you prefer my vegetables. So what do? They trade. Mr. Farmer, instead of making some vegetables and baking some bread, he does double the vegetables. And Mr. Baker, instead of baking some bread and making some vegetables, he does double the bread, and they trade for the quantities they need. Okay, and this procedure proliferates throughout the 5 people. The things that Mr. Smith needs, the guy that does the wood and metal work, he just does all wood and metal work, and he trades his wood and metal work for vegetables from Mr. Farmer, for bread from Mr. Baker, for milk from Mr. Sheps, and for beef from Mr. Stockton, okay? And so you see, we get the division of labor. Now, each person in the colony is better off because they have a higher standard of living. The farmer, Mr. Vegetable Farmer, can now concentrate his labor on only farming vegetables, that thing that he happens to be the most proficient at. And so he actually, and all the others do the same, so he actually can work less and receive the same things because he is allowing somebody else to work at the things that he is not as proficient at. And so where it might have taken him 12 hours to do all his vegetable farming, bake his bread, milk his cows, raise his beef, and do his mental work, he can now work, let's say, 8 hours at solely producing vegetables and trade those things for these other items that I've listed here. But guess what? In theory, Mr. Farmer, although he is more well off, enjoys a higher comfort of life, he is less employed. And so I say all that to make the point that employment, full employment, is not the point of life. Standard of living is the point of life. And this happens through trade. Now let's suppose that this all has gone on, and now he can do what he would have done in 10 hours in 8 hours and still receive all the same items through trade. But let's say an outsider realizes that all this has happened across the board. People that used to work 12 hours now can work, get the same amount of items by working only 8 hours. But let's just suppose that there's one man that still wishes to work 10 hours, receive his same amount of goods in trade, and use the surplus of the 2 hours to buy some fancy item that he had not dreamed of before. Okay? And so this man comes in and begins to offer, we will say, he begins to offer books, let's say. Okay? Let's say he is an apprentice of Mr. Gutenberg. Well, everybody loves books in this community. They go to buying the books, and pretty soon a great book market has sprung up. Well, a second outsider, seeing the success of this book provider, sees that they can do it a little bit better. And they think they can take some of the profit away from bookmaker number one. And so they set up shop and they begin to compete. Well, their books are better, they're higher quality, and they're cheaper. So guess what? Bookmaker number two now garners all the business, and bookmaker number one is out of business. He's unemployed. Now, would we for 1 second say that the community is worse off because they can either get the same things they had as before in less work, or they can stay with the same work and get more than they could before? Yet in the one case, the individual members of the family are quote-unquote less employed, and in the other case, we have a bookmaker that's out of work. Is society worse off or better off? Of course, the easy answer is that they're better off. And so this process is very easy to see when it's a group of small people, because you can see that next need that will be fulfilled.